Okay, there we are. So we first of all we need to remember that William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge were the two major exponents of the second generation, of the first generation of Romantic poets. We do remember that the first generation Romantic poets dealt with one basic major problem, the man-nature relationship, which had been broken by the Industrial Revolution. This phenomenon was basically English. It only concerned Britain because Britain was the first country in the world where the Industrial Revolution took place. It was the first time ever that production was no longer handmade. So we no longer speak about manufacturing, but we need to introduce a new concept, producing through an industrial process. But this had an important impact on man's life. First of all, people moved from the countryside to the new industrial towns, which had been built um, quickly. In fact, in these towns, which were basically houses, buildings around a factory, often no streets had been built. There was no current water. There was no city lighting. So it was very hard to live in cities such as Manchester. For example, Manchester was the major industrial town in England, and it was for the first time in the history, in man's history, a polluted city. The Industrial Revolution caused pollution. Uh, for the first time since the creation, we may say, of the earth was started being polluted. So man and nature had always existed in harmony. Human beings had always lived according to natural cycles, the succession of seasons, winter, spring, summer, autumn, and then so this regeneration of life, spring, which meant a new life, winter, which meant the life which was coming to an end. Now, men and women and children, because even children were involved in industries, in factories. Their life was now ruled by the rhythm of industrial production, and the relationship with nature was broken. People lived far away from the countryside, so these two poets, Wordsworth and Coleridge, who together wrote a collection of poems, the lyrical ballads, dealt with this theme. Wordsworth and Coleridge had two opposite styles. Wordsworth started from reality, so from reality, and came to deal with imagination. Coleridge worked the other way around, started from imagination and came to real comments on man's life. And this is what we are going to talk today, the rime of the ancient mariner. As we can see, there's an argument, some kind of summary that the poet gives us. Coleridge says, how a ship having passed the line was driven by storms to the cold country towards the South Pole. So it is basically some kind of shipwreck. We have this ancient mariner, this man. Look, He is not an old mariner, he's an ancient mariner, so probably he's dead. And in fact, we will find out that the ancient mariner is a dead man. But how can a dead man talk? Because the ancient mariner is gonna tell his story as a dead man. Actually, we will find out that he is living some kind of life in death. This is what the ancient mariner represents. A dead man speaking. The rhyme is divided into some parts. In part one, we find this kind of introduction. There are three young men. They have been invited to a wedding party, a wedding ceremony, but the ancient mariner, this kind of ghost of spirit, stops one of the three young men and he says, okay, you have to sit back and listen to me. The young man is kind of hypnotized by the ancient mariner. He can't move. He has to sit down and listen to him. What is the story about? It's the story of a crime against nature. The ancient mariner speaks in first person and he says, me and my comrades, me and my crew sailed. We were moving towards the South Pole, so we were moving southwards. In fact, he says that the sun rises on our left. So if the sun rises on the left, it means that we are moving southwards. They were moving to the South Pole, and all of a sudden a storm occurs. And after this storm, this scary storm, an albatross, a bird, a giant bird, an albatross appears, and his appearance is causes the mariners to be really happy, because it was some kind of sign of peace that nature gave them. It is as if this albatross, this dove, this bird, gave the mariners a sign of hope. The storm has passed, so you don't need to fear anymore. But what happens? The mariner, in some kind of rage, kills the albatross. And this is the killing of the albatross is what this rhyme is about. It is the killing of the albatross is a crime against nature. A crime against nature. And the mariner himself says, I have done a hellish thing. The killing of the albatross was a hellish thing to do. After the crime has been committed, nature takes revenge on the mariner. In fact, a skeleton ship appears. A skeleton ship appears, and on this skeleton ship there are two horrible characters. One is death, the other one is life in death. They are playing dice. They play dice, and death wins the lives of the crew. Life in death wins the life of the mariner. So the mariner's crew all die, all the sailors die, and on the ship only the ancient mariner remains, but in some kind of limbo, in a suspended situation, between life and death. He is alone, surrounded by these corpses, and he, for the first time, realizes how bitter it is to be alone at sea. She realizes how terrible the crime she had committed was, this crime against nature, and she starts to pray. She repents. Nature seems to forgive him. In fact, we find there's a passage from which we can understand that she is trying to pray. He prays, he looks up to the heaven, and for the first time, nature seems to have forgiven him. The water snakes appears, and she's so happy to see these happy living things. She says, "Oh, happy living things, no tongue might declare their beauty. A spring of love gushed from my heart, and I blessed them." So the mariner finally understands that nature has forgiven him for the terrible crime he had committed, and so he is thankful for being forgiven. And the final message the mariner gives, he delivers the boy before letting him go, is he prays best who loves best. All things, both great and small, for the dear God who loves us made and loves all. So finally, we do understand what Coleridge is trying to tell us. Man has to preserve nature. Nature is a friend to man. Nature is like a mother, a friend, a sister, whatever you like. So man must not commit any crimes against nature, because committing a crime against nature equals committing a crime against God, because God is nature and nature is God, because God created nature, and both great and small creatures have been created by God. So even when you just kill a bird, the mariner killed an albatross, but the albatross is one of the creatures created by God. So he shouldn't have done it. He repents, and he is forced to live forever. So that's why he has been warned by life in death. He is neither living nor dead. He will live forever in this suspended condition. He has a task, going around the world and warning people, you need to preserve nature. So this is basically what